So next topic in income statement is the bottom line, that is earnings. And when we sorry. So and how do we analyze earnings? When we look at the earnings, we look at the earnings per share. That is the earnings that are there for each shareholder, or that each shareholder is generating or earning. So for that we use a measure that is known as EPS, that is earnings per share, that is net income or the part of net income attributable to each share or each shareholder. So earnings per share is simply net income available for common shareholders divided by number of outstanding shares. So this is a very simple definition of earnings per share. That is net income available for common shareholders divided by number of outstanding common shares. Now next question is, what is net income available for common shareholders? Net income available for common shareholders is anything that is left after paying the preferred shareholders, or after paying the loan, or after paying the debtors or preferred shareholders. So net income for common shareholders is net income minus preferred share dividends. So if you subtract preferred dividends from net income, you will get net income available for common shareholders. And if you divide it by the number of outstanding shares, that gives you your EPS. So far it is very simple. Now next question is that what should be this number of outstanding shares? Should this number of outstanding shares be the number of outstanding shares at the start of the period, or should it be at the end of the period, or should it be at the middle of the period, or should it be at something else? So how do you calculate this number of outstanding shares? Which number should be used? So what do you think, which number should be used? At the start, at the end of the year, and sorry, at the end. But we do not use the number of outstanding shares at the end. Why? Because throughout the year shares may be changing, and as shares are changing, the proportion of earnings being allocated to the shareholders will also change. If there are shareholders who have increased, and if their number of shares have increased, then there should be lower portion allocated to each share. If number of shares have decreased, then there should be higher portion related to each share. So we do not take starting, ending, or in between here, but instead we calculate a weighted average number of outstanding shares. So usually you will find people in some reports, you may find end of the year shares being taken, but that is not the most appropriate way. Most appropriate way would be to take weighted average number of shares. So remember, in denominator we will be using weighted average number of outstanding shares. Now next question is that how do we calculate weighted average number of shares, or what are actually the weighted average number of shares? Let's say there is a company that is starting year on 1st Jan. On 1st Jan, it has 1000 shares outstanding. It has passed 6 months. After 6 months, on 30th June, it bought back 200 shares. Then it passed 3 more months, and on then 30th September, it issued 300 shares. And then at 31st December, it closed the year with 1000 minus 200 plus 300, that is 1100 shares. So now the question is, should we use 1100, should we use 1000, or what should we use? So we should be calculating the weighted average number of shares. How do we calculate weighted average? So at the start of the year, number of shares were 1000, and they remained outstanding throughout the year. That means for 12 months period, for 12 months, number of shares were outstanding, number of shares were 1000. So for 12 months, number of shares were 1000. Then for 6 months, it remained with 1000. After 30th June, it became 1000 minus 200, that is 800. So that means from Jan till 30th June, it was 1000, that is 6 months. But after 6 months, that is starting from July, it became 1000 minus 200, that is 800. Then it remained 800 from 30th June till 30th September, that is another 3 months. So that means for 3 months you had 800 number of shares. Now after 30th September, company increased or issued more shares. more outstanding shares of 300. So that means at 30th September, shares increased from 800 to 1100. That is 800 plus 300. So at 30th September or on 1st October, shares were 11. Total number of shares was 1100. And then for rest of the year, that is 3 more months, it remained be 1100. That means for next 3 months, shares were again 1100. So for first 6 months, number of shares was 1000. Next 3 months, number of shares was 800. And last 3 months, number of shares was 1100. Any confusion so far? Now next step is that you simply take its weighted average. Weighted average would be this 1000 multiplied by its weight. So its weight would be 6 divided by total number of months. That is 12 months. So for 6 months I had 1000 shares and total number of months in a year is 12 months. So 100 multiplied by 6 divided by 12. 1000 multiplied by 6 divided by 12. This is the weight for this 1000 shares. Then I had 800 shares. 800 shares remained outstanding for 3 months. So 800 multiplied by 3 divided by 12. This will be the weight of 800 shares in that particular year. And then I have 1100 shares. 1100 shares remained outstanding for another 3 months. So that is 1100 multiplied by 3 divided by 12. And if you sum them up, that will become the weighted average number of outstanding shares. So how do you calculate weighted average number of outstanding shares? First step is that you find out the periods, respective periods for respective number of shares, that how many shares were outstanding for which period. And then next step is that you take the weighted average, that is multiplying it with the respective weight, that is number of months for which the shares were outstanding divided by total number of months in the year. And if you calculate it, sum them up, it will become your number of weighted average number of outstanding shares. And then that weighted average number of outstanding shares will be used in calculating your EPS. Now once you have weighted average number of shares, you can plug it in denominator and then you can calculate the EPS using the formula that we just discussed. That is net income available to common shareholders divided by number of weighted average number of outstanding shares. And what is net income available to common shareholders? It is net income minus preferred dividends. Any confusion so far in this calculation? Okay, so before we go on to basic EPS, let's do this. So calculate the weighted average number of shares for this example. So at the start, that is 1st January, number of shares outstanding was 1 million. Then on 1st April 2009, 200,000 shares were issued. That means 1 million was outstanding from January till March. That is for 3 months. So the weight allocated to 1 million would be 3 divided by 12. Then on 1st April, you issued 200,000 shares. When you issue 200,000 shares, your total number of shares will become 1.2 million. This 1.2 million remained outstanding from 1st April till 30th September. And how many months are there between 1st April and 30th September? 6 months. So that means its weight would be multiplied by 6 divided by 12. And then you repurchased 100,000 shares on 1st October. So when you repurchase shares, your shares would become 1.2 million minus 0.1 million, that is 1.1 million. And then it remained outstanding in October, November and December. That is again 3 months. So weight is 1.1 into 3 divided by 12. And when you solve it, you will get 1.125 million number of shares. Now what is the EPS? 2.04. Anyone having a different answer? How do you calculate EPS? EPS is net income available to common shareholders divided by weighted average number of shares. Net income available to common shareholders is total net income minus preferred dividends. That is 2.5 million minus 0.5 2 million. This is your net income available to common shareholders, and when you divide it by outstanding weighted average number of shares outstanding, you will get your EPS. That comes out to be 2.04. So this is a very basic application, a very basic calculation of EPS, in which we have only done calculation for weighted average number of shares. Rest of it was very simple. This is known as basic EPS. There is another type of EPS which is far more important than basic EPS, or which is used in your analysis, or which is used when you are performing any analysis. So when you are performing any analysis, it is better to use another type of EPS, that is known as diluted EPS, instead of using this basic EPS. What is diluted EPS? So in some companies there may be securities that are convertible into common share. So maybe in some companies have some convertible debt. What is convertible loan or convertible debt? Convertible loan or convertible debt is that loan which can be converted into common shares at some point in future, or at some time in future, based on some contingency or contingent on some events. So that can be a case. Another company may have some convertible preferred stock. What is convertible preferred stock? It is that preferred shares, or those preferred shares which are convertible into common shares at some point in future. Another company may have stock options. What are stock options? Stock options are options given to employees which can be exercised by employees to buy the common shares. So there can be three broad scenarios. One is convertible preferred stock, other is convertible loan or convertible bond, and next is options, employee stock options. So if a company has convertible preferred shares, that means preferred share can be converted into common shares. It has not been so far converted, but it can be converted into common shares in future. And when it gets converted into common shares, number of shares will increase. And when number of shares increase, your total EPS will decrease. Why? Because EPS is net income divided by outstanding shares. So it is net income available to common shareholders divided by outstanding shares, weighted average outstanding shares. So if your stock gets converted into if your preferred stock gets converted into common shares, your number of shares will increase, and when number of shares increase, generally your EPS will decrease. There can be both the cases, it may decrease or it may increase, that we will discuss later. For now, just take the simple example that number of shares will increase and overall EPS may decrease. So that means there is a chance of decrease in EPS or dilution of EPS. So in that case, what you do is that when you are calculating the EPS, you calculate a specific type of EPS which is known as diluted EPS. In that diluted EPS calculation, you assume that whatever can be converted into common shares have been converted into common shares. Although it has not so far been converted, but in your analysis or in calculating diluted EPS, you will assume that it has been converted into common shares. Why? Because that will dilute your EPS, and that diluted EPS will be more appropriate measure, because you have taken into account any possible dilution or any possible decrease that can happen in EPS. So whenever calculating diluted EPS, you assume that anything which can be converted into common shares have been converted into common shares. Let it be convertible preferred stock, let it be convertible loan, or let it be employee stock option. So in that case, your number of shares in the denominator will change, and in certain cases your numerator may also change. That we will do in examples. But so as of now, just remain the basic concept that diluted EPS assumes that whatever can be converted into common shares have been converted into common shares. Now there can be cases in which, so generally diluted EPS will be lower than basic EPS. So generally basic EPS will be higher than diluted EPS. So you should go with diluted EPS because it is a lower number, it is more conservative. But in some cases, this might happen that when you calculate the diluted EPS number may come up to be higher than basic EPS. So some securities may be structured in such a way that when you convert them into common shares, impact of net income more than offsets the impact of number of shares. So in that case, overall EPS will increase. Let's say number of shares go up by 5%, but net income goes up by 7%. So overall EPS will increase. In that case, your diluted EPS can come up to be higher than basic EPS. Remember one thing, that this diluted EPS term can never be used for an EPS which is higher than basic EPS. It can either be equal or it can be lower than basic EPS. So if your diluted EPS is coming up to be higher, what will you do? You will take basic EPS as diluted EPS. So when you have calculated diluted EPS, you will check the lower of the two and you will take lower of the two as your diluted EPS. So remember, diluted EPS has to be diluted. It can never be higher than basic EPS. If it is coming out to be higher, then select basic EPS as your diluted EPS. And when we do examples, it will become more clear. We will do the examples. So for example, if you are converting preferred shares into common shares. So in numerator, what do you have? You have net income minus preferred share dividend. So here, and in denominator, you have number of outstanding shares, right? So when you convert preferred shareholders into common shareholders, there will be two impacts. One is that your number of shares, common shares outstanding will increase. And second is that this preferred share dividends will be removed from numerator. So if this impact is higher than the impact on denominator, then overall EPS will increase. In that case, we will not call that diluted EPS, because remember, by definition, diluted EPS has to be either equal or lower than basic EPS. It cannot never be a number higher than basic EPS. Before we go into calculation of diluted EPS, there is another small example or a small scenario that you should know, that is of stock split. What is a stock split? Stock split is the conversion of shares into a higher or lower number of shares. So for example, if I say that each share should be converted into 2 shares, this is known as a stock split. That is splitting your stock into multiple shares. And this specific type is known as 2-for-1 stock split. There can be 3-for-1 stock split, there can be 4-for-1 stock split, there can be 3-for-2 stock split, there can be any type of stock split. So stock split is when you convert your share into multiple shares. There can be a reverse stock split as well, in which let's say you convert 2 shares into 1 share, every 2 shares into 1 share. So whenever there is a stock split, that will impact your EPS. Why? Because stock split will change the number of shares outstanding. And if number of shares outstanding changes, then obviously your EPS will change, because your net income is same. So you need to, whenever there is a stock split, you need to adjust it in your EPS or in your calculation for EPS. Let's say here is an example. Assume the same facts as in example 13 that we just did, except that on 1st December 2009, a previously declared 2-for-1 stock split took effect. Whenever we are making adjustment for stock split, we assume that this stock split was there throughout the year. That was, this stock split had been there throughout the year. So simply what we will do is, our weighted average number of shares was 1.125 million. What simply we will do is that we will convert each of this share into 2 shares to adjust for 2-for-1 stock split. So we will simply multiply it by 2. And when we multiply it by 2, 1.125 million into 2, it will become 2.25 million. And when we use it in denominator to calculate our EPS will be 1.02 in this particular example. So this is how we adjust for stock split. Now moving on to diluted EPS. So far we have only discussed basic EPS or have only calculated basic EPS. Now we are moving on to calculating diluted EPS. What is diluted EPS? Diluted EPS is the EPS that will assume that your convertible shares have been converted into common shares. So let's say I have a preferred stock, convertible preferred stock. This convertible preferred stock has 100 shares. Each of these shares can be converted into 2 shares of common stock. Each share can be converted into 2 shares of common stock. I have common stock shares of 1000. Common stock is 1000 shares. I have net income of let's say 10,000. Net income is 10,000 and preferred dividend is, for example, on this 100 shares preferred dividend is paid to be 1,000. So what will be my EPS? My EPS, simple basic EPS is net income minus preferred dividend divided by number of common shares. So my basic EPS will be net income, that is 10,000, minus preferred dividend 1,000 divided by common shares. This is my basic EPS, 9,000 divided by 1,000. Now let's say I am assuming that this preferred stock is convertible, and I am assuming that this preferred stock that is convertible will be converted or has been converted into common shares. That is, I am calculating the diluted EPS. So for diluted EPS, assumption will be that this convertible security has been converted into common shares. If I have converted it into common shares, what will be my net income available to common shareholders? What will be net income available to common shareholders if this has been converted? 10,000. Why 10,000? Why not 9,000? Because this 1,000 was dividend for preferred share. If I am assuming that preferred shares have been converted into common shares, that means this dividend will not be paid. And if this dividend is not being paid, my total net income available to common shareholders is 10,000. So if preferred shareholders have been converted into common shareholders, then this dividend will be removed. And if it is removed, numerator will be 10,000. In denominator, I will need to make adjustment for number of shares. So common shares were 1,000. If I assume that these preferred shares have been converted into common shares, how much would my common shares be? Or what would be the addition to common shares? 200. Because there are 100 preferred shares and each is convertible into 2 shares of common stock. So 100 into 2, that is 200. So this will give me my diluted EPS. So this is how you calculate your diluted EPS. That is, if something is convertible, you assume that it has been converted. Once you have the diluted EPS, you will compare it with basic EPS and you will take the lower of the two as diluted EPS. So here is an example for you to do. So please do it and calculate diluted EPS. Anyone who has a problem with this answer? Everyone got this answer? Right. So moving on to another scenario, that is diluted EPS with convertible debt. So in previous example, we assumed that we had a convertible preferred stock. In this example, we are assuming that we have a convertible debt. When we have a convertible debt or convertible loan, there are two kinds of impact that again we have. One is on income statement, that is net income, and another is on number of shares outstanding. So again, let's say I take a basic example. That is, I have income of 10,000. I have common shares of 1,000, and I have a loan of let's say 3,000. This loan can be converted into $3,000. This loan can be converted into, let's say, a specific number of shares, and let's say the number of shares are 100. So this loan can be converted into 100 shares, or for simplicity, let's take 200 again. So this loan can be converted into 200 shares, and the interest on this loan is let's say 5%. So again, if I have to calculate diluted EPS, my diluted EPS would assume that this convertible loan has been converted, and let's say tax rate is 30%. So what is the formula for EPS? Formula for EPS is net income divided by number of shares outstanding. What is net income? Net income is 10,000. But when I calculated this net income, I would have subtracted some interest expense. So my income statement would have been profit before, my income statement would have been earnings before interest and tax minus interest expense minus taxes to arrive at net income. So this would have been my income statement. Now I am assuming that this convertible loan has been converted into common shares. When it is converted into common shares, that means I no more have this loan on my financial statement. If I no more has this loan, that means this interest component needs to be removed. So that means it should then be EBIT with no interest expense. Secondly, there was a tax that I paid. This tax was paid on profit before tax, and profit before tax was EBIT minus interest expense. So I applied 30% on profit before tax. That was EBIT minus interest expense. But now, as I do not have interest expense, my tax should also change. That is, my profit will increase, and when my profit increases, tax should also increase. That means tax will also be higher. And then I get my net income. So that means in net income, I have to make two adjustments. One is to remove the interest expense, and second is to remove the tax savings from that interest expense. So that means I have to remove the after tax cost of interest, not just the interest, but the after tax cost of interest. And how do we calculate this after tax cost of interest? It is simply interest expense multiplied by 1 minus tax rate. So that means when calculating net income, I had subtracted interest. Now I need to add back interest because I am assuming that this debt is no more there and this has been converted into common shares. And what interest will I add? I will add the after tax cost of interest, that is interest into 1 minus tax rate, and then I divide it by the number of shares. So net income is 10,000. Interest expense is 5% of loan, 5% of 3,000, and 5% of 3,000 will be 150. So that means 150 multiplied by 1 minus tax rate. Tax rate is 30%, so 1 minus tax rate will be 0.7, that is 70%. Divided by number of shares. So previously I had 1,000 shares. Now I have converted this loan into common shares, and I was told that this loan can be converted into common shares of 200. So what will be my new number of shares? My new number of shares will be 1,000 plus 200, that is 1,200. And whatever the EPS comes, that will be my diluted EPS. Again, I will compare it with basic EPS, and I will take the lower of the two as diluted EPS. Any confusion in this conversion or in this calculation? Okay, so here is an example for you to do. Please do the example. Net income of 750,000 for the year ended 31st December 2009. Weighted average number of shares were 690,000 of common shares, 50,000 of 6% convertible bonds, convertible to a total of 1,000 shares. So basic EPS will simply be your reported net income, that is 750,000, divided by number of shares, that is 690,000. This is your basic EPS. Diluted EPS will be making adjustment for this conversion. So if this debt gets converted into common shares, then you need to add interest expense in numerator. So that means you will add in after tax cost of interest in numerator. What is the interest? Interest is 6% of 50,000. So you multiply 6% by 50,000 and you multiply it by 1 minus tax rate. Tax rate is 30%. So 0.7. And in denominator, you had 690 shares earlier, and this debt can be converted, or this loan can be converted into 10,000 shares. So in denominator, you will have 690,000 plus 10,000, that is 700,000. And when you do your math, you will get your answer for diluted EPS. Okay. So next example is for stock options. So let's say there are employees who are given the options by the company to purchase the employer's stock. In that case, if employees exercise the option, or if employee uses the option, those will be converted into common shares. So what will be the impact? The impact will be that number of shares outstanding will increase. Now the question is that what will be the exact number by which they will increase. So what usually happens is that let's say a company has 1,000 options, and these 1,000 options can be converted into 5,000 shares. So 1,000 options, each option can be converted into 5 shares. So that means 1,000 options can be converted into 5,000 shares. What happens is that when these options are exercised, there is certain exercise price for this option. Let's say that exercise price is $50. This is the price that employee will pay to buy the shares of the company. So under this option, employee has the option to buy the shares of company at $50 each. So that means if there are 1,000 options, he can buy 5,000 shares, and those 5,000 shares can be bought for $50 each. Remember, this is not the market price, this is the exercise price. This is the price that has been locked, that has been offered to employee. Market price can be different. For example, market price is $80. So if employee exercises the option, employee will buy shares of 5,000, number of shares of 5,000, and the value of those 5,000 shares that will be paid by employees will be 50 into 5,000. That is 250,000. So that means company will receive 250,000 and issue shares of 5,000. So total number of shares will go up from, let's say previously they were 10,000. So total number of shares will go up from 10,000 to 15,000. But what company does is, this is detrimental for the company. Why? Because increase in shares can lead to EPS dilution, and significant EPS dilution also it can lead to significant ownership dilution. In order to protect, what company does is that company goes to market and buys back the shares. So company has issued these 5,000 shares, but now company will go to market and buy back some of the shares. And the assumption is that whatever money company gets, company will use it to buy back the shares. So how much did the company get? Company got 250,000. So company will go to market and buy back shares using this 250,000. When company buys back shares using this 250,000, how many shares will company buy? 250,000 divided by 80. So market price is $80 per share. Company is investing 250,000 to buy back shares. So what is the number of shares that company will buy? It will be 250,000 divided by 80 market price. One share is $80 and company is spending 250,000. So it should be 250,000 divided by 80. 3125. That means from this 5,000 issues, company will buy back 3125 number of shares. So net impact on the shares would be 10,000 plus 5,000 minus 3125. So net number of shares or new number of shares will be 10,000 plus 5,000 minus 3125. What is the answer? 11875. So this is the number of shares that company will have at the end, and this will be used in the denominator to calculate diluted EPS. Any confusion in this? Sorry? Achha, so company has given the option to employee to buy the shares, company shares. When employees exercise those options, company's number of shares will increase, right? Because new shares will be issued to those employees. So far clear? So when employees exercise the option, shares went up from 10,000 to 15,000 because 5,000 shares were exercised or bought through options. Now what company will do is, company do not want its EPS to be diluted. So what company does is that company goes to market and buy back some shares from the market using the money that it received from this option. So how much money that it received? It received 250,000. So it takes 250,000 to the market and buys back shares worth 250,000 from the market. When it buys back share from the market, it gets a price of $80. That is the market price. So it is able to buy 3125 shares. It had total amount of 250,000. Per share price was 80. So how many shares will it buy back? 250,000 divided by 80. So it bought back 3125. So that means shares increased by 5,000, but then company bought back 3125 shares. So net impact on shares will be 10,000 plus 5,000 minus 3125. 11875. Clear now? Okay, do this last question before you leave. The class here. Thank you.